Hello and welcome to Tech Craic, the podcast series brought to you by SYNC N.I, Northern Ireland's leading technology and business media company. This podcast series will see us speak with some of the best, brightest and influential thought leaders from across our local tech sector. Visit syncni.com and follow us across our social media channels to find out more. Enjoy! Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining this week's episode of the Tech Craic Podcast by SYNC N.I. We are joined this week, of course, by Lara Sunday, the product manager at Rapid7. Lara, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, brilliant. Well, listen, Lara, your backstory, your career, really just sort of jumps out of the page because it's so interesting. Obviously, you actually have an academic background, originally in anthropology, isn't that right? Yes. And then you were working in organic farming in the music industry, managing events, before taking the leap and joining the tech world. So I believe you left your job during the COVID lockdown, isn't that right?
Well, I didn't know it at the time. It was just before. I didn't know it at the time.
So was it just before the COVID lockdown? And you joined the Microsoft Security Academy?
Yeah, we went into lockdown 3 days after it had we'd started the course and 3 days later we went into lockdown. So it changed how we were taught slightly.
Okay, can you tell us a bit about sort of what inspired that decision and your career since that then?
Yeah, so for most of my adult, like my 20s and things, I was an organic farmer. And then I started Open House Festival. I started as an artist liaison and then I worked with Blackbird Productions doing backstage management for them eventually. And it fitted nicely with farming because I would go off and do festivals and events and things and then I could go back to working on the farm, you know. Yeah. And then I decided, was it 2013? I went back and did an access course to Queen's. And I was studying international politics and conflict studies. Mm-hmm. And then I decided I was doing like anthropology as a sort of minor. And then I ended up I really loved the social anthropology. Yeah. And decided to fully switch to it. Mm-hmm. And graduated in 2018. So it was interesting because I did kind of have the politics and the kind of hybrid and things in my first year, and then kind of went into anthropology more by the end. But that's how I ended up in anthropology and people. Although anthropologists, actually, there's some great anthropologists working in cybersecurity.
Yes. Yeah. What was it that sort of motivated you to make that leap? Is there somebody that you know that works in the tech world, or growing up, did somebody work in tech that you sort of inspired you?
I was actually aware. So when I was 16, this is very sad, probably very sad. Do you know the film Hackers?
Yes.
Right. That's how I knew about cybersecurity. I think it came out when I was about 15 or something. Mm-hmm. And so when I was 16, I ended up studying coding in North Street in Belfast. I was the only girl and I was pregnant. So anyway, a lot happened. I had my eldest son and I ended up not going back to it and ended up farming instead. But I was aware of cybersecurity as a thing from a young age. And then when I was at university, a good friend of mine, Paul, is actually a principal security architect in a very large company. Mm-hmm. And when I was done, because he knew I worked in event management and things like that, and he said we could really do with people like you in security. Okay. So what do you mean? He's like, well, you get you organising, you get things done. Yes. And so I looked at a CIS book and was like, there is no way. I remember looking at it when I was studying. I got the CIS book and I was just like, this, networking, what? My brain, and I think because I was in full study mode with other things, I couldn't. Of course, yeah. But then after I graduated, I went back into farming and support work, and I just reached a point, when you've been at university, it changes how you think about things. Yeah. I mean, that's the great thing about university. Mm-hmm. Its best form is that it changes the way you think. Mm-hmm. In a positive way, I think you learn so much, but I knew I wasn't reaching my potential and I wanted to do more. Mm-hmm. So he came home, my friend Paul, came home and we were chatting at Christmas, and he said, just look, even like a project management course or something, and so I started looking around, and very fortunately, Microsoft had just advertised their first ever Cybersecurity Academy. Right. So it was Darren Dillon, Jerry MacGyver. I'm hugely grateful to, there was, I think, 500 or 600 of people applied and 25 of us got through. And I went into the interviews and went through, and Jerry said, "Look, if I offered it to you, what would you do?" And I said, "I would go give my job up. I'll hand my notice in, and I'll do it." And so he says, "You've got it. You've got a place." And I handed in my notice the next day.
Brilliant.
It was this like all or nothing,
All
and
or
then it was
nothing.
kind of. I just thought, I have nothing to. Yeah, yes, don't get me wrong. I have a family, and there was things to lose,
Yeah, of course.
but I would prefer to go through life taking opportunities than hoping that I did.
Exactly. Jumping in with 2 feet as well.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Don't get me wrong. The pandemic happening 3 days in was like there was moments where I thought, what have I done? Because if
Yeah.
I did, because you weren't guaranteed a job, right?
Of
It was
course,
12
yes,
weeks,
that's right.
5 exams, and interviews at the end. And if you weren't guaranteed a job, so it was probably, and I've been divorced and moved house a lot, one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life. But also I've ended up in my dream job. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. It was rewarding then. Exactly.
well
That's
worth
the
it.
thing.
Yeah.
So worth it. And so you stayed at Microsoft then for a few years, isn't that right? Yes.
Yeah. So I was brought in as an associate consultant and then moved to consultant. And then I moved into being a security architect, and sort of worked with large enterprise and public sector,
Okay.
which I loved. No, I'm hugely like Microsoft. It will always be, I suppose we were very fortunate with the Cybersecurity Academy that we were actually embedded in with senior and principal consultants, mentored
Okay.
us like the
Yeah.
whole way through. You were given and engineers, and senior engineers, like they're just incredible people, like supporting the whole way through, and educating you. I think I had probably one of the best educations from understanding security from a business perspective and not just technically, that you could get, which I don't know if all academies did that, but we were hugely fortunate.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely fantastic. You've obviously now joined Rapid7. Can you tell us a bit about some of the favourite projects that you've worked on so far with the Rapid7 team?
Yeah, so I came in originally because Cal O'Neill had heard me talking at Women Tech Makers about cloud security posture management, and I was brought in. It was very convincing. I hadn't thought of being a product manager before. And I came in working with the cloud team, coverage analysis team,
Okay.
and then I took over sort of compliance as well, and compliance. And one of the biggest sort of, I suppose, that I'm proud of since I got here was we created the first proprietary AI and ML compliance pack, which we launched last December. Previous, so it would have been 2023. So way before, and sort of we built out our AI and ML coverage over the past year. And I was just to be at that forefront of developing, because at that point it was everywhere in the news, but then how do you secure it?
Exactly.
And I think one of the things people at that point sort of forgot is if you're developing in the cloud, your best practices, good standards in the cloud, if you're doing your cloud hygiene correctly, that will go a long way when you're developing using, AI and ML. So that was kind of how that came about. But I think that's probably been the big thing that I drove that, I'm probably most proud of. But I'm now heavily in the governance and compliance space, which is, any of my old teachers at school would laugh probably.
That's brilliant. And it's been since September 23, wasn't it, that you joined Rapid7?
Yeah, so about a year and
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, you've fairly got the ground running then. And in terms of security, we wanted to ask sort of, what are the most common security challenges that you find your customers have?
This is probably a very obvious one, but I think visibility.
Okay.
And understanding their dependencies.
Yes. Okay.
I think
Brilliant.
it's become very clear in the past few years how interconnected we are, and sometimes the unknowns.
Yeah.
You don't know about, do you know who your third party then? Do you know the
Exactly.
intricacies of how we're connected, and being able, I had one of our partners, a great guy, he describes it as the Christmas tree. How do you reduce the noise of you've got all of these alerts and information coming. How do you make sense of that? How do you prioritize that? And I think that's still kind of having visibility of their, their state, knowing silos become a problem because there's still very much, and I've spoken that, the need for collaboration between teams. It doesn't matter if you're the vulnerability team or the cloud team. I think cloud actually forced people to work together in a way that hasn't been before, in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
You're forced together kind of thing. I think, so knowing those dependencies becomes very challenging. Sometimes you're not always aware. And then just new regulations coming in. I think we've been, the past, especially in Europe, if you see, and what we're going to actually, with like Cyber Resilience Act coming in, things like this have been hitting, and it's especially, I think, impacting sort of medium to small businesses to kind of keep on top of this. And I think obviously then AI and ML, I think it's the challenges that companies have had with cloud and upskilling and things like that. We're now going through that again with AI and ML. So I think as well a little bit.
Yeah.
Art and how do you secure it?
In terms of security, who do you think has the advantage at the moment? The attackers or the defenders? How much does the advancement of AI play in, and how much will it play in the years to come?
I find this question funny. I've been asked this before.
Yeah.
It's not a game. There's a winner at the end.
Yes, it's a journey.
Yes. So AI. So attackers don't have to set up a center of excellence for ethics.
Exactly.
Right? And I've argued that they cooperate actually better than we do in the defender section often. Because they communicate with people that they need to, and they do it very quickly.
Exactly. Very good book. Yeah.
Whether they want to work with them or so all of these. So yes, in some respects they can work at a faster pace.
Yeah.
AI does lower the level of the talent and skill that they need
needed.
It accelerates the type of attacks.
Yeah.
Especially in sort of when you think of social engineering and the types of things that are coming through on that side of the house. Where I think our advantages lie, and it's not one or the other, is that when you think about the collaboration between governments and public sector and private, the skill, when you think about the knowledge and the skill and the amazing people in this industry that are now collaborating together, and I think that's our strength. I think what we have to do is act on it.
Yeah.
You can't just sort of say we're going to collaborate and do these things. I think you have to act. So I think we will always have an advantage of skill, of that knowledge and that kind of just the sheer numbers and force that we can bring to that. And I know you say there's a skill shortage and all of these things, but you actually see the work that's being done and it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So I don't advantages, disadvantage, who's winning and who's not. I think that will always swing in roundabouts. I think there's not a decisive end game with that.
Exactly. No, that's really interesting. And on that note, can you talk us through how important ethics and regulations are in cybersecurity and how Rapid7 maintains those principles as well?
Yeah, so that what was kind of a bit unsettling, I suppose, for many people and just the general public is when AI and ML and Microsoft, I was still at Microsoft when we launched. How what is this doing? The questions around, you had Italy, I think, banned, things like this, worried about, child safety and things like this. Those questions of how this was being developed, where they were getting the data from, wasn't always quite clear. And I think it's TRISM. So for us at Rapid7, we work on the basis of TRISM, which is trust, risk, and security management. And so often we are thinking about AI and ML in the sense of technology and how do you secure it from a technical perspective. And I think one of the things we've heavily leaned into in Rapid7 is that aspect of what is our business values as a company. Yeah. One of the things I like about working at Rapid7 is the diversity of thought.
Yes.
So we have a centre of excellence. So we actually stood up, and we've had this been quite long running. Stakeholders from various different teams collaborate in the AI space to ensure that our business values, we've discussed them, we've thought about them, we've written them down, that they're actually developed into our products, whether that's secure by design. But I think when you're going to be number one, and this is the challenge, especially, you get bigger companies trying to argue against regulations and things, because they fear that if you have regulation or compliance in this space, then you're not going to be the first. You're not going to launch the first, if you had to think about ethics along the way. Yeah. I don't know, I prefer that I'm in a company that's thinking about that before we do that, that we're doing that in hand with what we develop. So it's kind of foundational to what we do at Rapid7.
Exactly. Well, my next question, Lara, was going to be, can you talk us through how important collaboration and working holistically is at Rapid7 in your approach to governance and compliance, and why is it vital to avoid silos?
So yeah, so I mean, like as I mentioned earlier, like
Yeah.
we're a business, we're a we're
Of course. Yeah.
we are impacted by the same regulations that are coming down the line, that our customers are having. We are having
Yes.
to work out and understand these ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think I love the unparalleled access. I work with literally the security team, the governance team, my VPs across, public sector, like Sabine Malik, Raj Samani, our chief scientist. Like I get to work with everybody, and we collaborate we get on calls together, we work things out, and because of that, we've been able to drive our compliance and governance initiative. Sergio Alonso, who's the head of governance, we work very closely together to ensure that our products have the compliance needs that we
Yeah.
need going forward. And I think that is like I said, with business, it's getting your hands around that. You cannot do that from one angle. You need to involve your legal team. You need marketing. You need product engineering, all to be working together. We have we set up a compliance community, which is not a business. This is just for knowledge sharing and
Yeah.
educating our sales team, our support engineer. We come together. We have a channel and people can ask questions that they have or they want to learn. We do community sessions to kind of teach people about the regulations so that they can feel confident having those conversations and get a bit more understanding. Yeah. So
Brilliant. No, that's fantastic. And moving on then, in terms of sort of the academia side of things, how long have you been involved with CSIT, and why has the partnership become so important?
I think you were saying earlier about like Northern Ireland, about my journey with
Yes. Yeah.
Cybersecurity Academy. I think Northern Ireland is excellent at the collaboration between private sector and our academia. So Dr. Stewart, so it's been actually a good few years now. So I think Dr. Stuart Miller, Stuart's, I think it was 2022, his research. So that was like the first rapid, won prizes actually for their DAS vulnerability, their deep, solution. That was 2022. And we've been building on that. We announced our actual official partnership, the AI Hub last year, and the work that we're doing at the minute. And I think there's a couple of hands to this. So we actually have a lot of interns and students who then gone on to be graduates and work with us. Stuart was a student at Queen's, and when you think about that talent pipeline directly going, and I think we do that very well.
Yeah,
CSIT.
very
We're a
well.
fantastic partner to work with.
Yeah.
But also from a research perspective. And the innovation that is going on, being able to kind of work like we can, their teams come to us, we work on site with them. The collaboration, partnership is essential. I think we're just doing exciting things. It's just really, I mean, I'm not, I'm technical, right? But I am not an AI data scientist, and it's just amazing sitting in a room and when everybody's together from a security perspective, and then you get AI and you see the things that we're working on. It's just really inspiring. But it's become sort of, but I think it's so important that private sector also give back to that. If we want this workforce, we want this pipeline, but we have to invest too. So
Exactly.
it's definitely a two-way thing there that we need. But yeah, but I think it's vital to any country, like any country or business has to think in these terms of collaboration.
Exactly, because that's one thing I wanted to ask about as well, which we've touched on thoroughly, is how important are partners between industry, government, and academia for developing and nurturing that talent. It really is so important.
I think so. From a governmental perspective, I can't remember. It was one of the American institutes, like 2009, brought out papers on the need for this sort of. So it's it's been talked about a lot.
Yeah.
In different areas, it's been more successful than others. We live in a hyper-connected world, right? So you're thinking, from an engineering perspective, from a computing perspective, from a cultural perspective. We are now with AI sort of in this world where you can't work without each other. In some ways, the vulnerabilities between the links between, we're so sort of. And so it's essential for us when we go back to when you say who's the advantage and who has the disadvantage and things like this, to collaborate together. And I think the space sector actually is an interesting one for this, where you see the UK government, so they're driving kind of security because they have to think in long terms in security, which then helps to assist private sector to think about their ethics and what the standards are for the security baselines that they need, and then academia working with that to kind of I think academia actually plays a great part in connecting the private and public
Yes,
sector
it
together
does.
oftentimes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's great work, the CSIT does that very well, I think, I've met different people across the board, but cut through that connection. And that's that sort of, I think academia plays that pivotal role between the three, but I think working with government helps us to create our security baselines, and we get to work on these together and connect us all. And that's where we think of that advantage that we have, or where we can get it actually comes from collaboration between the three.
Exactly. No, that's brilliant. The connection is just so important. So that's great. Moving on then, Lara, to B-Sides Belfast. We wanted to ask you about that. You are obviously one of the directors at B-Sides Belfast. Can you tell us a bit more about this and how important it is to continue to spread the message that there is room for everyone at the table, and that people of all backgrounds bring so much value to the cyber and security space? You've obviously touched upon diversity already, but how do we help to how can we all play a role in continuing to help spread this message?
I think so for me, diversity, accessibility. So as a conference, this is something we're really trying to work on and improve the experience for people. I found out, I can't remember the exact statistic, but I found out last year that if someone applying, even to come as just as a guest, to the conference, if it's not clearly explained on, say, the website that an event is accessible, they won't even go for a ticket. So if you have someone with a physical disability, so for us, working on ensuring that our conference is, except and every year we're trying to improve that experience for people. I think there's a couple of different strands. There's diversity and then there's accessibility. So it can mean different things depending on what context. There's the physical elements of it. We have childcare facilities, for instance.
Oh, brilliant.
So anybody, it's free. So anybody come if they have children, we provide childcare for you.
That's fantastic.
They can pick up, it's accessible, because during the week, if you need your kids looked after, it's one kind of strand. I think from a speaker perspective, I would encourage anybody, to put forward a proposal. When the CFP's open, we love to, that diversity. I mean, there's been actual work a colleague of mine, Daniel Shore, has done on diversity when it comes to security. Security teams that are more diverse actually perform better. That's a statistical fact. That's not me kind of.
No, exactly. It's because there's so many different thoughts coming together, to give a more well-rounded picture.
And so I think as a conference, it's something that we hold very vital to, is that we sort of make it as accessible, from whether that's from a diversity perspective or accessibility to be able to attend.
Brilliant.
Conference.
No, that's fantastic. And how long have you been a part of this, Lara?
So I've had friends for a couple of years. I spoke at it 2 years ago, and then I became a director last year.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Brilliant. And then that brings us on perfectly to our last question, which is Northern Ireland is obviously working on amending its gender gap in the tech world, which just 27% of the industry currently identifies as female. What would you say to a young girl or a woman interested in pursuing STEM subjects or technology as a career? Would you have any particular words of encouragement or advice for any woman who may be considering joining the field, or even just considering a career change like yourself?
Well, my first point would be, so it doesn't matter if you don't come from a tech degree, right?
Right.
When I graduated from anthropology, the irony was Microsoft were not at the social sciences, career fair, and at that point, I knew that Google hired anthropologists as UX. A lot of anthropologists go into UX.
Yes.
I think Google was like one of the biggest hirers of anthropology graduates or whatever. Don't be put off if you don't come necessarily from a background of tech, that you can't make the transition. And find a path to it. If it interests you, you can. I would say in Northern Ireland there's a fantastic community, and I would encourage anybody, reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. We've got great initiatives. Women in Tech Belfast, Claire and Laura do fantastic. There's Women Tech Makers, an amazing organisation. We just had their launch here recently. Attend event, but reach out to people in LinkedIn. Like, people I find in our community are hugely supportive, and encouraging, and will try and help you find out, if they don't know of a course or something that will, InfoSec N.I, the meetups in is it Woodmakers? I'm getting the name of the bar wrong. I'm going to get shouted at now. Someone watches this out. There's lots of community out there to kind of communicate with. And I would say take advantage of that, and don't be put off if you don't necessarily come from a traditional STEM background, that would kind of in any way, don't get me wrong, you'll need to learn, there's technology that you need to learn and things, but don't let it put you off, because there's values. My anthropology skills that I were taught definitely helped me be successful, have helped me to be successful in my role.
Yes. No, that's brilliant. I do think that's a really good point, that people may not realise. It might seem a bit daunting from the outside looking in, but as soon as you even just start to sort of tap the surface of the community here, as you say, it's so welcoming and so supportive.
Yeah. No, and I think it's actually on the business side as well, to be open-minded about where they hire. As well, and not just look for, and always say, oh, you must have a STEM degree necessarily, if someone's willing. I think sometimes, and I think that's what Microsoft did, is they hired the person that they want, knowing that they could educate them in the technology.
Exactly.
But if you find people that hold your values and work ethics and think, that you can develop the technical side. But yeah, definitely, if anybody's out there, I'm on LinkedIn, you can reach out. I would definitely say just ask for help, and there should be. I think we're very fortunate here that we have that community.
And then even going back even further, just sort of a grassroots level, young girls at school, sort of trying to decide what subjects they might have an interest in science, but sometimes it's maybe a bit more sort of male heavy in the class, and they may feel a bit daunted for different reasons. Would you have any sort of words of encouragement for a girl in that position?
I just do it.
Yeah.
I don't second guess yourself. Do not let anybody else put you. If you are truly interested, just go for it. You will regret the things. It's very easy to say, so you will regret the things sometimes that you didn't try and that you didn't go for it. If you have two choices before you, and one might be hard. Now, that's the other thing. Something might be hard. Sometimes taking that option is not always the easiest option. But it's always worth it if you kind of really want to go for it. So I know that's probably not, I don't know, like, I would say take up opportunities. Well, there's great projects. You think of Cyber First, the Empowering Girl, like, there's many initiatives. Exactly. I say if your school are offering that, go for it. Like, take up those opportunities to go on school trips, to, visit businesses, go to career fairs and things like that. Talk to people, like our team are always out there doing, our recruiters and things are out there speaking to people. But yeah, and just do it. I think I said it in stronger language actually when I was doing a talk. We had the Women Tech Week. Just do it.
No, that is absolutely brilliant and so true as well. It's definitely sort of worth taking that leap on, and I think once you've sort of jumped in,
we so often, like, I actually have an issue sometimes with a lot of the leadership, especially for women, is aimed at on the basis that women are not confident enough and that we're scared of working with men and all these things. And I actually get frustrated by that.
Yeah.
Because while that is a lot of women's experience, and I've had experiences where I've had to deal with, male colleagues maybe not saying or doing the right things always. I don't feel that we should always work off the premise that women are unconfident. Like, when it comes to skills and leadership and taking up opportunities, women should become we kind of do this thing where we're like, oh, automatically a woman is not confident in her role or not confident enough to take that opportunity. And I would say a lot of the young women I've encountered are phenomenal. Do you know what I mean? So we shouldn't always work off that basis.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so just do it.
100%. 100%.
Take the opportunities.
Brilliant. No, that is fantastic, Lara. Thank you so much for joining us. We've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
Yes. Take care.
Thank you. That's it for this week's episode of the Tech Craic Podcast. Be sure to follow SYNC N.I across our socials for more. Thanks for listening. Bye.